Now, our third and last speaker is Haifa Zangana, the novelist, who you all will know, I'm sure. And I think she's absolutely the right person to bring us back to the title of today, about the fragmentation of culture and identity.
Okay. Very little has been written about the cultural changes. Most of the writing, analysis, and the talks, as you've seen and heard today, it's all very important. It is about the politics, it's about economy, it's about various other issues, education, children, and all. Culture hasn't been so I'm going to focus on this aspect of the cultural changes, and in the following 15 minutes, I'll try to highlight some of the changes here to develop as a result of being an IDPs. It's the focus of it. So, Azad? Okay. Well, we have to establish, it's been established anyway, that displacement is not a mere physical movement from one place to another. It can't be looked at as simply as that is. And we heard about the trauma, we heard about all the how people are affected by it. And so to suggest solutions, it's not about resettling them immediately. Things are not going to work this way. It needs more than that. So the transition period is very important also, and carries more complex effects on the displaced, on the individuals and their families. And in order to understand the current cultural changes and to find solutions, comparative analysis is needed, in a sense that we have to know how they were, what was culture for them, what did it happen, how it's changed the whole completely after that. And above all, the reasons behind it. In order to understand those changes, we have to look into the reasons. So I'm going to specifically focus on Baghdad area, Baghdad being as a symbol, as an example of the rest of the country. And people the displaced are either living, like been mentioned many times earlier, that either living within their families, within their friends, within their relatives, or occupying various neglected buildings, they occupying it. It is really affecting, there's a major shift of the population. Can we? So what we're dealing with is a major shift of the population from one place to another. Sometimes it's from one place to another. So it's not just one movement of the population. So they move even within the neighborhood, from one community to another, and then leave to other places. So they are more or less on the move. And what it seems to start with, like only transitional period, like we've seen in the camps in the north of Iraq, which been established like 4 years ago, so they are becoming gradually and increasingly like their permanent home. So the change of it is from transitional for a couple of months or couple of weeks into years, creeping into it. So how it's to be dealt with this. And it is affecting the very fabric of the society, this major population shift. It is in Iraq and Baghdad, if we're talking about it, it's the society well known for its multi-religious, multi-ethnic, mosaic composition. And that's been talked about also earlier. And it is Baghdad, we consider it as Iraqis and for the whole Arab and Islamic world, is the ultimate symbol of unity and national identity. Iraq is that, Baghdad is that for the most. Historically, Baghdad is Madinat al-Salam, the city of peace, and it is one of the leading cultural centers of the Islamic world. I mean, Baghdad University and other universities were absolutely the place for many Arabs and Islam and other countries to come and study, because it is a prestigious place to be there, to be graduated from Baghdad University. This is very famous. Poets, writers, painters, archaeologists, this is it is Baghdad a center of sciences as well as arts. So Baghdad, for us and for the Middle East, for the Arabs, represents the continuity of human achievements and history, of a pride and dignity. It is the beating heart of Iraqi culture, and it has to be seen like that. It must not be seen as what we see it nowadays, like divided, fragmented, all for various reasons. So what are the mechanisms of segregation? Now we see the segregation of the people in various areas in Baghdad, which it used to be accessible to all. There was no area in Baghdad that not accessible to all the people at various times of the day, of the month, of the year. Okay? Right. The mechanism is there are systematic plans being shown earlier about the maps, changing maps. We've seen it. Immediately after 2003, there were colorful maps being disputed. Wherever I went to have a talk or attend a meeting, there were maps surrounded. We are surrounded by them. We're divided either yellow or green or red to indicate that areas of Iraq and areas of Baghdad are not for Iraqis, all of them, are not for Baghdadis as a whole, but it is divided. It is for Sunni, it's for Shiite, it's for Kurds, it's for even the Kurds in Baghdad are divided into various sects. So it's the fragmentation of the fragmentation. It's not just one level of it. It leads to other kind of fragmentation. This is the first one, drawing a new map. So we're disputed. Second one is the restriction of movement. It became a gradual process to minimize daily interaction. So I can't go to visit my relatives because it's too dangerous. My relative became suddenly a Shiite and I became a Sunni. So I don't go to the area where they are. Surrounded there, segregation is building up gradually among people, built on fear and mistrust. So these are the seeds that started to grow gradually and enforced by the various political agendas, whether it's by the occupation themselves or by the political parties engaged within the political process and helping them. Both worked on that. So Baghdad became a contested space. It doesn't belong to everybody. It's not mine anymore. It's not, but it is mine, it's yours, it's the other person. It is divided among those sects and ethnic divisions and all. What has helped practically building the walls. Building the walls, furthermore, and like Professor Yassin mentioned, that putting the exit and entry now points. That's made it much more difficult for people to interact, to be together, to visit. So if I want to visit somebody, a friend, I'll think about it carefully, and in the end I give up because it's too difficult, it's too humiliating, checkpoints are there, so I rather stay in and thanks God for my safety. It is not safe to go to that area. So it is, again, a building up of another layer of fear of the others. We becoming us and the others now. It's been also applied through attacking markets. Markets usually is for gathering of people, for seeing people, to go to a cafe, to eat together, to all. Attacking systematically these gathering places diminished the capability of meeting others. So it's got less and less also in that sense. We come to the religious, and this is one of the most dangerous really tool of segregation used in Iraq. It is not just religious, because it's not between the Christians and the Muslims, Assyrians and other Yazidis or all, but also sectarian. So within the Muslims community or Muslims, it's Shia and Sunni came. Then there is the ethnic divide. So we are doing religious, sectarian, ethnic. So the Kurds now are different than the Arabs. And the Kurd Faili are different than the Kurds. And definitely different than the Arabs, obviously. So I am who got a father who was a Kurd, my mother who's an Arab. I got quite a big problem now. How am I going to settle all this new manufacturing identity? So we are going through a process of manufacturing a new identity for various groups now. And we've seen it all. So an important, if I go to the religious and sectarian, how do they do it? It's not just by talking, not just by persuading people that, well, you are a Sunni or a Shia, because people who've been there and living together, they can easily say, well, no, I really don't believe you because I've been living with my neighbors. My mother is a Sunni, my father is a Shiite or something. So how can you really work on this? And started to breed by destruction of religious places. So for Christians, churches were attacked and burned down, and people were killed. For the Shiites, Husseinias were attacked and bombarded. For the Sunnis, the mosques. So when these things happening, it goes deeper inside the people. It is related to the very deep level of culture, deep level even before civilization probably, and start to fear the other who has the arrogance and the power to attack your symbol of religion, of sect, and other than that. So this is very important. And if we can, how many mosques, how many Husseinias, how many churches being bombarded and exploded and people were killed in those places, religious places, we will be shocked. It's one of laying the base for dividing Iraq is this one. It's becoming also, the second level is the symbols of Islam, for example. Symbols of Islam, we've been brought up with the images of imams. Doesn't matter really, it's lovely, the photos, the images being made, and we look at them. Other symbols is the visiting the shrines. It's been done by all Iraqis. In fact, Muslims, particularly Muslim women, visit churches in order, especially when they have difficulties reaching God through Islam, so they go the other side and trying to reach Him through Christianity, through the church rather than the mosque. When they don't have children, they go to the church. So it's something is in our culture to believe in, and we've been brought up with it. This has been demolished gradually. So the symbols, the images, how we approach God, it's all became like it's ours, it's not yours. And it's yours, it's not ours. So it's been isolated. This has been actually encouraged also by the government, because now we have days to celebrate certain festivals, specifically for certain sects, and they claiming it's theirs. And if you're not our side, you better not celebrate it, or you are forced into celebrating it. So the policy of aggression, imposing all this, became gradually built up, and it is encouraged by giving money, funding certain celebrations in big way, so they can see this is the popular, this is how you should be. The other side does not represent you, so you better be this side rather than. So selectively now, this is the other base for building a new identity and erasing the old culture or the communal memory. Changing names. It became also something very, very important. So if you are a Shia living in a Sunni area after the segregation, you better change your name, or under ISIS, change your name so you can be really safe in that area. If you are the other one, Sunni, living in that area, you change them. The other manipulation or the other maneuvering in order to protect yourself is to buy fake identities, carry multi-identities. So when you come across certain areas which is ruled by militias from that sect, so you better watch or show your new ID rather than another one. This might look on the surface something that tomorrow, when there will be change of government or change of the regime or the end of the occupation, we are going to change it immediately like that. That doesn't work this way. They are really digging deep into our society, and I think the longer they are there, the more difficult it would be to be getting rid of it. Renaming places we've been brought up, like, in Iraq, maybe decades or years or whatever, hundreds of years, the names are changed now. They're changing it. And they also changing in some places because they either, they say, well, we achieved victory there. So it's like Jurf al-Sakhar, which Professor Yassin spoke about. It's now Jurf al-Nasr. That means it is our victory place. So changing areas like that. A city in Baghdad called Medinat al-Thawra, part of Baghdad, where 2 million people are residents, and it's called, it used to be a revolution, Medinat al-Thawra, revolution city. Then Saddam came, it became Saddam city. Now it is a Sadr city. So these are really kind of targeting the deep culture is our family. Yes. Iraq is famous for the intermarriages. We are unlike the Northern Ireland, where Catholics don't marry Protestants or don't marry any. But this in Iraq, intermarriages is the usual thing. There is a decline in that now, and there are problems actually that and I don't have the exact statistic, but it is there. We started to see it. The being displaced, also being traumatized, we talked about the problem. Men cannot find a job. The high unemployment is pushing, of course, and it is the unemployment is more among women than men. All this giving more power to men to control. In a way, it could be control. The other way could be to protect also. They want to protect their wives. They want to protect women. The female within the family has to be protected. So there is very limited scope of movement women, and women are losing tremendously most of their achievements for the last 100 years, one after the other gradually. So we're going backward rather than forward. Children are having problems, and we heard John, she spoke absolutely the reality, giving us the reality of what's happening to them. But also, I mean, living in new places, they are not connected with their parents. Because what they talk about, and sometimes they get really angry about with their parents, because they blame it on the parents. They think you forced us to move, like it's because of you and all that. And they have no memory of their original places. If they've been in the camps for 5 years or living in deserted areas or whatever, on the fringe of whatever society or place they've managed to find, they don't have a memory of their original place, especially if they were too young. And this is all affecting their family. I think I'll skip that because John spoke about it. Right. What do you, can I have it back, the other one, please? I just wanted to mention something about what Feryal mentioned earlier, and I'm really pleased to hear there are nice places like that, camps, because today I read a statement by UNICEF spokesman, and he was saying something. He talked about how many kids, how they're suffering. It's specifically he was talking about education, but he mentioned something like he was. No, after. He said the camps for IDPs and Syrian refugees in northern Iraq are not somewhere any of us would choose to live with our families. He is talking in general about it, not about the same camp probably Feryal was talking about, but in general, this is the situation. It's terrible, it's for the whole family, it's not really a nice place to live, like no one can live. Right. There is, right. Azad? Okay. Just to carry on, one thing about the family also. Early marriages really is coming, I wouldn't say it's all over the place, but is there now. And there is minimum age for marriage in Iraq is 18, and it is 15 years with parental consent, but there is an increase in child marriage. And the reason behind that is they think it's to escape poverty, to have their daughter protected by a husband, so the responsibility move from them. They have too much responsibility, they can't do much about it. And the lack of education, of course, one reason of it. So it's not really they're doing any improvement. I wanted to, and I think probably you agree with me, that I wanted to talk about food. And food is a major component of, I think, in the Iraqi psyche of our culture. We love food. We enjoy cooking. We enjoy receiving people. We spend so much time preparing and every little detail of it. So no surprise they found baking bread is really part of, can be a therapy for trauma and otherwise. I feel the same way. Cooking for me is a fantastic thing, but more important is to offer it to others, to share it with others. Regardless who they are, we share our food with others and enjoy it that way. But when you are displaced, this is almost impossible. And this is a statistic by the United Nations. 57% of IDPs households suffer shortage in food. That is, and so they adopt a new strategy to deal with that. What is the strategy about it? Is first they modify their food income So they eat different things than what they used to and they love to. Second, they consume low quality food. Whatever they get, they'll eat, which is affecting their health all. They buy food by debt, so this is the financial aspect of it. They can't afford it. Reduce number of meals, and then they prefer to, in order to feed their kids, adults are eating less in that sense. And the other way they found, they can attend, you see them attending religious occasions, not because, especially when the food being distributed free, and also marriages, if there are marriages, even they don't know who's marrying who, or the wedding who it belonged to, or funerals, not knowing who will be buried. So, but it is an occasion to eat. This is another strategy. In conclusion, and I think my time is running out, is I believe there is an ongoing process of planting fear and mistrust, aims to destruction of culture, erasing collective memory. We all spoke, in the previous session, people who spoke from the floor, they spoke about we weren't like this. We weren't, and we all been brought up in Iraq. And none of us asked the neighbors or friends whether they were. It's shameful to ask what are you religiously or other thing. So we are still living here. We are witnesses to our own history. And what they're doing is erasing our collective memory and rewriting history in order to divide and rule. IDPs are bearing the brunt of all of that. Well, I'll read you a quote from Milan Kundera. He's a Czech writer. He said in his book of Laughter and Forgetting, he is describing the process in relation to people as how the process of erasing memory. He said, the first step in liquidating a people is to erase its memory, destroy its books, its culture, and its history. Then you have somebody write new books, manufacture a new culture, invent a new history. Before long, the nation will begin to forget what it is and what it was. This is the intention, but I agree with him that this is the process. In his detailing of this process, but I disagree with him with its presumed success. Palestinians people continuous struggle against Israeli attempts to erase their memory and history in Palestine has failed tremendously. Despite 2 major wars, 13 years of sanctions, occupations, and terrorist attacks, Iraqis are not going to give up. Thank you very much.